Hey everybody, welcome to another Sacred Mountain Battle Report. Today we're going to be playing Lasalle, 2nd edition, and we're going to be playing a scenario, Marching to the Guns, where the French will face off in the attacking position, coming in from the right side of the scenario and trying to take 3 objectives. Interestingly enough, if your cannon come off the table and go back into reserves, they have to enter back into the blue section, and what we'll be doing is 10 turns, no sudden death victory. And it's supposed to be an unbalanced scenario, but we're pretty close in points, and it's going to be the Prussians and the Austrians facing off against the French and her allies.
We're doing a little larger scenario. We have the Austrians and Prussians setting up in this L-shaped area, and then we all have to enter within 4 base widths of this edge. If our cannons get disrupted and have to move off, they can enter along here. Our encampment is here. Their encampment is here. This is an objective-based game with 3 objectives, and it lasts, I believe, 8 turns, 10 turns, and whoever controls those 3 objectives at the end of 10 turns wins the game. So, and there is no sudden death. It's a little unusual. There's been some contention about why our encampment starts basically behind enemy lines, which is kind of weird. But whatever, we're playing the scenario. We have a hill that blocks line of sight. It's French are lining up in the center here, the Bavarians here, and the Saxons over here. We have random entry, and so Saxons have 4 brigades and can only bring in 2 of their 4, similar with the French. The Bavarians have 3 brigades, can only bring in 2. And so we're about to get this party started.
Okay, here we thought we were super smart firing through this bowling alley. Look at all those bounces that we'll get all the way through from our guns. So we've done the bombardment on turn 1, got some bounce through. Of course, very little disruption in that whole crew, though. Okay, the Austrians came out pretty hard, made a pretty big battery, had a pretty significant bombardment. You can see their cavalry are already almost in our camp. Didn't quite make it. Their infantry came out, squared up, and blocked my whole cavalry advance, and it doesn't look like I'll be able to save our camp with all the Saxon cavalry that I have in march column that I'll talk about in a little later. I've got a limbered gun up on the hill. Hopefully I'll be able to take some shots at those squared up Prussians and Austrians.
So this is a mistake that I made. I could potentially expend some momentum because these guys are all in march. But I boxed them in march, and so these guys would be able to spend 2 momentum to do a formation change. These guys would move up 2, these guys would move back 2, these guys would move up 2, these guys would move back 2. Now it would cost an extra momentum because I'd be going into terrain on this hill, but also I'd be interpenetrating. So this formation change would cost 3 momentum. So that was a big mistake on my part.
Okay, here we are in the next turn. I was able to advance, then do a formation change. Probably could have intervened there and done a formation change. These guys shot, pulled back, and re-limbered. This is into turn 2. I don't think I did much, and of course there's no bounce there into those squares because I'm firing from a hill. His cavalry, French cavalry, moved up. The Bavarians are coming in. Okay, here we have some Austrian guns lining up on the forthcoming French cavalry, trying to figure out the bounce and primary target. They're not yet volleying, so they're still bombarding because they're out of 4 base widths. Probably a tactical mistake on John's part, but he has never played the game before. Here's the combination of cuirassiers and light cavalry or dragoons about to take our camp, facing off against my hussars and heavy cavalry. Here's some nice shots of the French cavalry coming in and the French guns, hopefully getting some shots back counter battery into the Austrians, but I think they're a little out of range there. Okay, we've got I think those are Austrian heavy cavalry, or maybe Austrian dragoons or hussars. The cannon had taken out one of the French cavalry. They're kind of pincering off the French there. The Prussian cannon shot into my cavalry and took the camp. Here are the French kind of coming online and coming into the forest. Those are the Bavarians coming into the forest from the north there.
So here we are at the start of turn 3.
So how many men do we have?
We tied skirmish with 3 to 3, so we had to roll off. And we beat the French beat the Allies in the roll off, and the French will be going first.
We got 10 is movement of the third.
French coming to grips
the ones that
in difficult terrain. These two guys double teamed here. Both received disruption, staggered back. This group was outscored by 1, staggered back, received 1 disruption. So that was pretty rough on John. These guys turned, charged, and got John's cavalry in a poor formation. These guys turned, charged, caught the infantry in a poor formation in line. Both of those were -4, and those were both pickups.
So I want to do a little brief note here. When those cavalry charged in, if we had been using the huzzah special rule, that cavalry would continue. They took a disruption there, but they would continue to be able to charge down that line, and those French would be in poor formation throughout the entire charging process. And although the cavalry would continue to get disruptions due to the charge, those French would be rolled up. Here the French have charged into the forest against the Austrians or Prussians, and by all rights they should have won this combat, but due to some poor dice rolling, they end up staggering backwards.
You lost that love and feeling. Oh, that love and feeling.
The sad French. So we finished the skirmish phase here. We've got a general out to do emergency intervention to square those guys up so they don't get rolled by the cavalry again. I have all my Saxon divisions in finally, and they're marching to the sound of the guns, ready to fight. Well, they were ready to fight. So I have the best cavalry in the game, almost the best cavalry in the game. I made a list based on the cavalry and rolled all ones. When I finally got to charge, it was awful. I was able to get some hits on the Austrians with my infantry that finally made it in, but here we go with the wrap up.
In the terrain, I'm taking nothing away from you guys, just the way it was set up.
It's the good ship, lollipop.
Well, this is going to be actual vocals.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's going to be your start.
yeah. What's your MVP, Jason?
My MVP is the cannons because they were so lined up so perfectly right through here. And I did a lot. They kept rallying off, but Also, my 1st Brigade, who are my elites, came through and managed to push these filthy curs out of the woods. But the objectives are still back there, so it didn't make that much difference.
How about you, John? What do you think your MVP was?
My MVP is Byron's Cavalry Brigade.
Oh, over here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they did.
He stopped. He took away the momentum, and he stopped you up. And it was a brilliant comeback from the very first game you ever played, where his cavalry stood there and died.
Yeah.
This time they stood there and held their ground and actually threw somebody back.
Yeah, against the Saxon Crossiers that rolled deuces on the first roll.
Yeah.
How about you, Byron?
I'll go with the same with Joe.
Yeah,
I felt pretty good about
the cavalry did pretty good. John, what do you think? What was your MVP?
My infantry. I didn't quite know how to use them at the beginning, but once I started figuring it out, they started tearing stuff up.
Yeah. I think my least valuable player were the Saxon heavy cavalry. It was poor rolls, really poor generalship, like multiple poor tactic choices for me. I think my MVP is the infantry. I think they did more damage as always.
They did, yeah.
Even though they are super weak when it comes to disruption.
Yeah.
So, guys, what do you think of the advanced rules that we did?
It was nice working them in.
We didn't use them a whole lot. I think it seems to me like the charging bombardment just doesn't have much effect. If as much as you want it to, it just doesn't affect much. But once you get into the close combat and volleying, that's big. That's big time.
Well, I think one of the errors we made in this game is we had one general per side, and we shared momentum, and so we were just momentum poor throughout the whole game, and it made it so difficult, especially like this hill. You know, it cost us so much more momentum to come over the hill through these woods. We were just jammed. It took more momentum to attack into the woods, and that was a bit of a mistake, and it kind of made for a less dynamic game than if we would have each had our own momentum and would have been able to each just, you know, do our thing and hammer our way through, you know.
Yeah, I think we made lots of mistakes with the economy of momentum, and not exactly how the classic club games are written, or at least how we've been playing the classic club games.
Huzzah, if you know about that rule, man, it would have just made some dramatic moments throughout this, especially when he was charging Bavarians over here, and then without Huzzah, he wasn't able to follow up. With Huzzah, he would have just been
Yeah,
rolling up the side.
Joe, if we had Huzzah, he would have rolled up the entire right flank of the French and Allies with a single cavalry regiment.
Right.
Like he would have destroyed us.
Yeah.
Yeah, great game, guys. Thanks for hosting, Byron.
Huzzah.
Huzzah! All right, thanks for tuning in.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into another Sacred Mountain Battle Report. Man, that was a fun game. I think I made some gigantic mistakes. Really could have done better with my cavalry. The other thing that I think we're going to add, when we have multiple players playing long table edges, just is too crowded. And so when we have multiple generals, we're going to do always long table edges, just because the enjoyment of the game is better, and you don't get all crowded up on one side, and you can, you know, play an objective game, which is really what we were after, but it just didn't turn out that way. Also, the random order entry, not so great. You know, even though the turn may be going to 10 turns, and there's no sudden death, which is the way it was in ours, we were so encumbered and bogged down by the opposing troops. There was no way we could even get close to any of the objectives, and so that game was pretty much lost from deployment. And I will say that I found Mustafa's scenario design to be a little under play tested, I think. That one heavily favors the defender. In fact, all the weighted scenarios really favor, it seems like, the defender. That was the case in Jason's and my game, where his French faced off against my British and ended up just waylaying, it seems like. But he had some poor dice rolls in that. That Huzzah rule will be very dangerous when that is used in future games, and we will be using that in future games. The other thing about charging and getting cavalry to grips and getting into volley range, we're very trepidatious about getting our miniatures close into that, because we don't want to get shot at. We don't want to get charged. But you have got to be aggressive with your infantry. You've got to get into that volley range, because they will not come to you. And so the thing that I'm going to do from now on is I'm going to just be very aggressive with moving my infantry up and getting those volleys off, and then following it by the bayonet. Also, you have to be very mindful, like other games, maybe ship games, or the one that really comes to mind is X-Wing, in placing your formations to where they can change formations when needed, and using that emergency intervention when required, that emergency formation change. What I could have done with my cavalry when I was so bogged down, instead of spending those 3 momentum, I could have just done an emergency formation change for free, saved the 3 momentum, and could have gotten a pretty good charge off, I think. The other issue is the economy of momentum, not knowing that I could have done that, save 3 momentum, instead of expending that over several turns and just getting bogged down in the minutia of trying to get those guys out and into the open where we could do some work on that left flank. Regardless, we had a great time. I'm putting in images of the QRS that I designed. We did not save maybe once or twice over the course of about a 6-hour game have to look at the book with this one-page typewritten front and back QRS. I just did screen grabs from the PDF book, and hopefully you guys will like it. Anyway, thanks again for tuning in, and I've got a new phone, so I hope the video quality was a little better. Have a great day.